Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY and you can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm Foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter. I have a blog at foodafan.com.
Hello, my name is Khuê and I'm @Cat on Instagram.
And I'm Alesa. I'm Inky Rocks on YouTube and Instagram.
Hello, I'm Akane. Just Akane.
And welcome to episode, I believe this is 34. And Jacob, we're super appreciative of all of our listeners. And our listeners sometimes write in reviews for us, because the best way for you to support this podcast right now is to go onto Apple Podcasts and help us write a review and let people know why you listen to the podcast. And in order to show our thanks, we want to read 2 reviews, because that is our tradition on this podcast. So I'll go ahead and read the first one. And this one, I am very, very sorry. I cannot read. I don't know how to pronounce the name. I think it's Mer Goparian, Mher. And this person says, 5 stars, therapy podcast at the end of the weekend. Good news to Jacob. I love the effort that CY and Jacob put into these podcasts to inform us, the viewers, about the updates in the Japanese stationery world. Living in Japan and understanding both Japanese and English enables them to bring non-Japanese speakers close to the stationery world of Japan. The dynamics of the 2 hosts and their guests make this podcast fun, relaxing, and informative, keeping me eager for the newest release, unlike other podcasts. This podcast deserves to get more views. I encourage everyone who loves Japanese stationery to listen to these 2 gentlemen and support their work as I did. Stay safe, heart. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. I think there are a few other podcasts that we also enjoy in the stationery kind of world as well. So, I'll give a shout out to, for example, Pen Addict, obviously, the Stationery Cafe, Nip Section. But I think there are other podcasts that we also enjoy.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, the second review, and let's see. This review is from Rose Amy Clara via Apple Podcasts, and Rose Amy Clara says, 5 stars, informative, funny, and interesting. I was going to give this a 4-star review so that Jacob could feel like it was more realistic. But I didn't want to mess with the overall podcast rating, as I do believe it is a 5-star podcast. Cry laugh emoji. I always enjoy listening in on the Japanese pen scene and hearing CY's, Jacob's, and their guest stars' take on new pens, old pens, and inks. I like how everyone has their distinct tastes, but with some overlap. It's representative of the larger pen world, and their agreements and disagreements make for much more interesting listening. Also, I'm here for the politics. Nothing is apolitical, and it's important to use your platform for what you believe in. Keep on being opinionated, awesome, and creative. Well, thank you very much, Rose Amy Clara. We really appreciate your support. I, for one, agree. Jacob may disagree with that. But I do believe in that as well. So thank you very much for your support. All right. And I think that's all in terms of the reviews today. We've got quite an action-packed episode today, so I'm just going to dive right into it with the acquisitions. So I got a few interesting packages recently. I got finally in my own Moonman Q1, which is the fat chubby pen. And I have now installed a Pilot Parallel. So I shaved down the Pilot Parallel feed so that it would fit into the Moonman housing. And then I kind of ground the Parallel itself to be kind of a curved shape so that I can play with it like a folded nib. And I have to say, it's quite fun. I really like the juxtaposition of such a small pen laying out such large fat lines. I just think that's hilarious. And I got a few in. So, Khuê, you also got one of these pens, right? What do you think about it?
I really like it. I really like it looked like the Sailor Moon magic one. So I choose the very bright orange pinky ink, the Sailor Manyo Sakura, and I mix it with some shimmering violet, super violet liquid from Tono and Lim. So it gives kind of pearlescent effect. So it's really neon, but when you shake it like a magic wand, then it's like pearlescent, so very dreamy. But I haven't really played with it because I have the original nib inside, and I wanted to put a parallel too. So next step.
Yeah, and I also got another package from Izumi. So for those of you who don't know, Izumi is a guy that has a Taobao store and has designed several very popular sailor pens in the past. And he's also on Instagram as, I believe, Izumi Pen. So Izumi_pen. And he has kind of, I would say, a special relationship with Sailor in that he's able to commission a lot of small lot, very rare, limited to like 50 pieces, 60 pieces. And I got in from him what he calls the Blue Train and the Coral Reef. And I think there's some kind of a question mark around this because what I specifically asked him, are these the pens that you have designed? And he specifically responded, yes, I have designed these pens. But there seems to be, and I'm talking to you Khuê here, there seems to be almost like an overlap of what they've done and what Penpoint in Tama have done. So I haven't done my full research on this yet, but I do find that quite interesting. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's very strange because when I saw him posting the picture of the coral reef, I was like, oh, he got the limited edition on Penpoint. I think that was released in 2017 or 18. And I bought it there in Tama. And the lady told me that she has maybe 5 or 6 left, but it was from a series she ordered some years ago. And the name is Coral Reef, like in Japanese. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it's translated to Coral Reef. And it's exactly the same pen as the one Izumi-san is sharing. And he has the Penpoint nib. On some picture, you can have he has a Penpoint.
The one that I got was a standard Sailor bicolor nib.
Okay, because I saw on his feed he has one with the Penpoint like this one. Go. And another one. And people want it for the nib, and I was like, it's very strange. At least I got the one with Penpoint nib.
Yeah, the one that he has, he says, is from Sailor 2018, limited quantities of 50. So, I don't know. It might just be that they've named the pens the same name, or that it looks very similar. But for sure, next time when you come back from Switzerland, we have to bring both pens and compare side by side.
Yeah.
Jacob, you also got a few things from your taxes.
Yeah, so we talked previously about these metal dip pens, these drill log pens, and Alesa here has done good reviews about these pens. And I think I said in a recent episode that I bought this pen in a very roundabout way through this tax scheme here in Japan called hometown tax or Furusato Nose, which was a bit complicated and took a bit of time, but I finally got my drill log pen. And by the way, Drillog tweeted this week that there have been a grand total of 3 people getting the pen through hometown tax. I'm one of the 3 people doing it this way, so that says something about how complicated the procedure is. But so I got the pen now, and it's kind of what I remember it from tips, which is that the nib works very well, and you dip it once and you can write like a whole page. But at least the one I have, which is this sort of twisted faceted design, it's a bit uncomfortable to hold for sure. I mean, you can get used to it, you can find a position that kind of works, but it's not the most comfortable pen to hold for sure.
It's like a twisted body, right? And I think because there's quite a lot of facets, so the facets become quite sharp.
It looks like an IKEA tool, to assemble your furniture.
I mean, you can find a position that works for you, but you have to try beta, and yeah, it's pretty sharp. But yeah, I like it, and I've been playing around with it a little bit, and I think I'm going to do a blog post about it when I have time. But I also saw, related to that, I saw that Drillog is now doing a Kickstarter campaign, so they're going to sell the pens overseas via Kickstarter. So they've just announced that they're doing the campaign now. You can sign up to be notified, but they haven't started the campaign yet. So that will be something to look forward to.
See, what's interesting to me about that is why couldn't they just have sold it to people overseas anyways? You just take a PayPal invoice, you charge them for the shipping, and you sell that. So for me, it's a bit strange that they felt the need to go and do a Kickstarter campaign. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the reason is. I haven't read about it, but for some reason it looks like they think they need to raise capital, right? That is sort of what Kickstarter is about. Maybe there are some upfront costs for them depending on how they choose to do the distribution. But also, I don't know, maybe they think that Kickstarter also works as a form of marketing.
Yeah, I think that's probably most likely it. Like try to gain some kind of critical mass for marketing. Because the idea about the capital would make sense if they were struggling with production even domestically, right? Because capital shouldn't make a difference wherever you are, whether you're able to make pens. But that they're able to create these pens and keep inventory in Japan suggests to me that there's probably something more than, hey, we want to raise funds. But I think the marketing, I think that's probably it. Yeah. And we've got also a lot of news. So just hot off the presses, another sailor. Didn't expect that. We have the Bunga Box Twinkle Milky Way. And this pen is kind of like a follow-up to the pen that they released at Tips last year, which was the Twinkle Stardust. That pen was very, very popular. I thought that was a bit like too blue, but it was like a bluish, kind of navy pen with glitter. And then there was a Raden kind of star at the top.
But it's hard to tell exactly what this one looks like because I'm not sure what's going on with the photo there. You can't even see these threads on the finial, right? It's all blurred out.
What it looks like to me is that they took a picture of the old one and then they did a masking in Photoshop. But what surprises me about that is supposedly they will get it in tomorrow. So that's strange to me. But I mean, I ordered a few, all in zoom nib so I can grind them down, for anybody who wants to get a Twinkle Milky Way. We also have other, let's say more rare, collabs. We have Nagasawa's Elabo. I think that was pretty interesting. I mean, they did two, and I don't remember a store exclusive Elabo.
Yeah, same here. It's an interesting choice, and I don't have any sales figures to back it up, but in my impression is not that the Elabo is that popular. You don't see it very, very often in Japan, right? So I wonder why they chose that particular model. But it's interesting that they're doing it. The price is a little bit on the higher side, but
yeah. And of course, the Elabo is the Pilot Falcon in the West.
Right. Which is so confusing.
Yeah, so confusing because they have a different nib for that. We also have a few events. There's a Kyoto event, a Tegaki event. I think that one is still going on, despite the state of emergency. And we have, interestingly, pen trading from Wagner in Hammatsucho next weekend.
Yeah, so the state of emergency is now ending tomorrow, right? And instead of state of emergency, we get this like a Mannen, which I cannot remember what the name is, but it's kind of a lighter version of state of emergency, where you're not really supposed to go between prefectures, I think, but there are not the same kind of restrictions on like being out late and so on. And because of that, Morrison decided that he that it's okay to do this pen trading event, which is usually the biggest Wagner event of the year. So this time it's going to be held next weekend in Hamamatsu, so the same venue as the Big Tokyo International Pen Show, and it's going to be both Saturday and Sunday.
Next weekend.
Yes.
Are you going to go?
I might be working, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, that will be a few days after my vaccine. I'm getting my vaccine on Thursday. So I'm expecting to be knocked out over the weekend. But might stop by one day. I'm not sure if there's anything like really interesting, but I have been asked to look for a rare platinum pocket pen from like the 80s or something. So might see if there's anything there. But yeah, it's, you know, kind of finally getting back onto a normal schedule for them, I suppose. I remember Mori-san was quite worried even the previous time. So I wonder what kind of measures that they'll take this time, especially since, you know, we've talked about it at length, but people who attend Wagner are kind of more senior. And so it seems to me that they would be more at risk.
But they're more vaccine, right?
Well, the thing is that apparently the more senior folks are not getting the vaccines here in Japan. And that's why I was able to get a reservation, because they have these mass vaccination centers and they expected it to be, you know, pretty crowded, and instead nobody's there. So I'm not actually sure. I wouldn't trust half of them to be vaccinated. But yeah, we'll see.
But for some reason, these like reservation, the call centers are very crowded. It's hard to call and make a reservation. And I guess some of the seniors may not be comfortable making a reservation via the website, so that might be part of it.
Yeah. And, you know, moving on to the next topic. In my household, there is now a different problem. We are infested with cats, with plastic cats. And I kind of regret showing Akane, but she's now in love with getting these like gachapon cats that supposedly are pen holders, but they're really bad because the paws are really small, so the pens always fall off.
I mean, it's a cat party. Like, you can't have one cat. They have to be a party of cats. They're so cute, and there's about 4 series of these cats now. And since we live in quite a tourist-friendly area in the urban side of Tokyo, there's a lot of gachapons around, which there's a whole shop full of gachapons where there are small toys in themes, and you can put in about 300 yen to draw one cat, and they all come in different patterns. But they're all consistent in size. It's so cute.
And what she's forgetting to tell you is that we seem to have bought out those stores. But it's not just our household, right? Somebody else's household is also infested with cats.
Yeah, because the infection started with you coming and giving the cat to my son.
We have a common interest.
And it started with 2 cats, and then he wants more to make a pyramid. And now we have around 12. And then my friend in Switzerland asked me to bring some. So I think I bought like 25 of them in total. But it's 300 yen, right? And we can see that on some accounts, some people send them like $20, something, US dollar.
Yeah, so we see Pensachi selling these cats for $19. So it's a $3 cat they're selling for $19. I think I might have to stop this like nib grinding nonsense and go sell cats instead.
Yeah, let's design some cat with the like a sailor or platinum or pilot t-shirts.
Yes, it sounds like Pensachi owes Akane and Khuê some influencer royalties for this.
Yeah, it's a lot of cats. So I think between us we've got like 50 cats. And Khuê, you know, don't blame your son for these cats. I know that your husband has been texting us saying, stop posting the cats. You're a bad influence. And I know you're the one mainly playing with those cats.
Yeah, I wait. As soon as he's in bed, I start to take most of his toys, like little cars, train, and other stuff, bananas, wooden vegetable, and I start to make pyramids and tower with them. And there's kind of satisfaction, to play with balance. And they are quite difficult to put on top of each other. So I try to mix with other objects. It will be more stable, and my son is really happy in the morning before going to daycare to destroy. He has kind of Godzilla side, so he likes to see that I made something by night and destroy it in the morning. So everyone is happy.
Well, also, I've watched some highlights of the Broadway Cats, and now I'm trying to line them up as if they are on Broadway. So now it's gone to a new level. It's a whole production.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an infestation of cats. We also I fielded a question 2 weeks ago, and one of the listeners said they were talking to Khuê, and she really wanted us to talk about glass pens. But I honestly didn't have a lot of knowledge about glass pens to be really talking about it. And I know that we've got a few glass pens. I've got a Tus, I've got a Matsubokuri, and I'm sure we have like some other like Aon here. You've got some glass pens as well.
Kanseifu.
Yeah, but a very timely release of Shimibun was actually focused on glass pens. I think just last week or maybe the week before.
Yes.
And apparently there's a lot of different ways. I mean, obviously, right? There's a lot of different ways to like make glass pens, but in this particular issue, they even talked about the different ways that these makers are making the nibs and how the nib shapes are different. Akane, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So, I'm a novice as well, so I have been gaining more and more visual information through this whole issue, and we were watching some glassmaking competitions on Netflix, so we just assumed that there will be just a mold to put the glass in and to form the mold into that sharp shape. And I thought that was the only way to make the nib, but there's also ways where they import like a glass stick or a lead with strips of glass around it, so it would look like a fat rod, and then it would have small bits of smaller rods around it, and they would melt it and sharpen that. There's also some makers where they would just have strips of glass and they would bend it and make a more of a flexible shape. And there are ways to make it straight and ways to make it twisted.
Yeah, so, there's all of these like different ways and shapes. And I honestly didn't know because I'm not like a huge glass pen person, but there's definitely been a rise of glass pens as a trend in general, right? Have you noticed that?
One thing I've noticed is that glass pens are becoming more popular. At the same time, shimmering inks are becoming more popular. But yet we have there was this discussion a few months ago about how pigmented and shimmering inks aren't very suitable for glass pens because of the grooves they get stuck. So I'm wondering now, based on what Akane is saying, that there are different ways of making the nibs. If there are ways of making this glass nib in a way that's more like shimmering ink friendly.
Yeah, probably has to do with like the size of the grooves too, right?
Yes, there's different sizing of the grooves, and they say that the ink flow is not determined by the depths of the grooves, but they have to be smoothened out, and the flow of the ink is determined by how smooth those will trickle down, basically.
Mariska had asked me by private message if the different nib has some some has some feedback, like some are more elastic than others, some are more hard, and how we can know which one. But I think outside of testing them directly is quite complicated. They don't the glass pen doesn't come with kind of ID card. So I think either you talk with the makers or you go to the shop and test them. It's not that easily. If you buy one online, they won't have kind of ID card next to it to say, this one is a very hard nib or a soft nib or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm looking now at the Shimibun episode or the issue right here, and it says that there are generally like 3 important parts of making the nib part. The first is the tip, and how smooth it is, how large it is as a point in general. Then there's the ink channels and how deep that is. And then there's also a shape. So Akane said just now, like a twisted shape or a straight shape. And each of the different makers have a different way to do it. So Matsubokuri is like twisted, whereas Hase is more straight. And I think that's actually pretty interesting. I never really thought about glass pens having differences in nibs in that way. For me, glass pens are just like basically F or like at most M nibs, other than the Toos one, which is a fantastic fat italic nib. But other than that, I didn't really think about how the way that it's kind of molded or it's shaped, how that would affect the writing.
But you can see that if you test some cheap, like not cheap, but the first price of glass pen, usually it will scratch a lot the paper, so it's not comfortable. Like you can do some swatches, but if you want to write like a sentence, it's quite uncomfortable, and you won't it's not nice, and the sound is very aggressive, I think. If it can be,
in the issue it's that they use microscopes and also many grades of sandpaper to really smooth the tip out, and that makes a lot of the difference in the writing.
So I also know that there are these popular, very affordable, like acrylic glass pens, right? And there's some Chinese brands in particular that sell those. And I've tried a few of those, and first of all, they are not twisted; it's all like straight grooves, right? But also, as far as I remember, you cannot need to hold them like a brush, like vertically. I wonder if that has to do with the fact that the nib is not twisted, or just the way that they make the nibs.
Yeah, Alesa, you have a Toos pen as well. Do you use it often?
I use it for like big swatching kind of things because it's not as comfortable as say like a parallel. But I wanted to point out in that article too, is kind of interesting. There was an English speaker that makes glass pens, and that he might be more available to people overseas. And then Toos came out with a scroll flat tip, which I thought was really interesting. And I think the English speaker also makes like a 2mm wide kind of a flat side pen too. That was pretty interesting. But I was surprised at how many glass makers they had and how many companies that I had never even heard of.
And about the Toos italic flat pen, who was really popular when we talked about last time on the podcast, I saw that Shoko Yamazaki started a new design too, a flat design. He just posted yesterday on Instagram. And so I guess there's a big...
Right, yeah, it's almost like a flat italic tip. It's kind of interesting. I wonder if they will... Yeah, so the Toos one is kind of like, it has a 180-degree twist. Mm-hmm. This one is purely flat, right? Mm-hmm. Like just straight outwards. But clearly it's very inspired.
It's the Lucas Mahoney, the Hanabi Glass Studio. It's on page 45. And he has a really interesting italic. It says 2mm.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that might be something that, you might want to pass on to your listeners. They might actually be able to talk to them and have things mailed to them.
That's right. Is he in the U.S.?
It says fireworks, whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't say whether he's in the U.S. or not.
But I think just communicating with someone might be easier, if...
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't know about this glass pen maker, but his stuff looks pretty cool too.
It does. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's not a coincidence, right, that the magazine just was printed out last week, right? And Okamotoya is doing like a 1 week event or something. Like every day they release a new a new designer, some new pens. Like it's for the last 4 days. There's only glass pen on their Instagram feed.
Seriously? Yeah, I haven't been following them.
Yeah. I think it's also like easy to get into because you don't really have to think about, oh, how does this work?
Yeah.
Right? Like you just kind of dip it and just write. It's more intuitive and I think it also feels more casual than getting a fountain pen. I think fountain pens have like an image of being like kind of stuffy. Whereas, you see this kind of pretty glass pen, you just pick it up and you're like, okay, I know exactly what to do with this.
And it's really easy to clean. Like it's just, you can test, some of the ink you want to put them in your fountain pen, you just say, oh my God, it will take me like hours to get out all the shimmering or the metallic part. And with the glass pen, it's just so easy to clean. So you can try every aggressive ink and you don't regret to make any mess in your pen.
Yeah. So right now I'm trying to do like a hobonichi where like I write with different inks every day, and this month I'm like trying to do like Pride Month color themes where I start off with a very dark shade of red and like try to like make it in a gradient. But it's great when you have glass pens to try out all the inks that you have not swatched at all, and like just try out all the little bits of shade and then try and find the perfect one to use for the day.
Yeah, so just one thing about these glass pens I wanted to say is that the popular ones can be really hard to get hold of. And I'm not even talking about like international shipping. I mean that even if you are here, if you are in the same city, right, they do occasionally they do these events, or they have these like supreme like drops on their website. So you need to very closely follow their Instagram account, and you need to go to the web store at the right minute. I mean, it makes buying a Franklin Christoph antique glass like a walk in the park by comparison. Right? These are really hard to get hold of.
Yeah, and they're really expensive too. I mean, you can get like $20 glass pens from Sase, which is the guy that started this whole argument about how shimmering inks shouldn't be put in glass pens. And you can go up to like $400, $500 pretty easily, depending on the techniques used. And yeah, I think I might prefer the ones that are like straight in terms of the channels, because I feel like that's easier to clean. If they're twisted, then you kind of have to do this like twisting motion in order to clean it. But again, I'm not a big glass pen user, but maybe now I have to do more exploration.
It does make a slight difference when the channels are curved because it holds more ink purely, and also like you're supposed to twist the glass pen a little bit as you write.
Like when we come back to the conversation about the drill log, right? The drill log is kind of very engineered for maximal flow in that way. So if you look at the drill log that you have, is that twisted or is that flat? I think it's twisted, right?
Yeah, it's twisted. In a way, I feel like the drill log are sort of the coneage of the glass pen world, and it's an engineer's take on it. Yeah, that's twisted.
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely do want to do more research on this, but again, these can get expensive real quick. And you can't really like bring them around. Like you're not gonna pocket carry a glass pen.
But that's one of the advantages of drill log, and that's something I think Alesa mentioned in one of her YouTube videos, that these are built like a tank, right? It's hard to really damage these.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So moving on, we do want to follow up on the Tomoe River saga. Yeah. Jacob, you wrote a very excellent and definitive blog post about it. Can you talk us a bit through about that?
Yeah, so previously, and we talked about it on the podcast, I talked to Sakai Technical Paper because I wanted to understand whether they sell anything with new Tomoe River paper, and their response to me was that they only sell a specific type of loose leaf paper with 52 GSM, and we have it on the table here. So there are no notebooks, and there's no 68 GSM by Sakai. But what was not clear to me is whether 68 GSM even exists anymore, if you can buy it. And I couldn't really get a straight answer from Sakai about that, so I contacted Tomoegawa directly. So you can go to their website, and there's this like contact form, and you have to say what you contact them about, and you write something. So I did that, and like within hours, I got a long reply from someone from the like paper sales division in Kyobashi, with a few people CC'd, including someone in the shachoshi. So it seemed very formal, but they gave me a lot of good answers. So first of all, they clarified the lineup, which was not clear to me before. So right now there are like three main types of Tomoe rivers. So you have what they call the matte or matto Tomoe river, which I think refers to the coating, but that is mainly for printing, and it's available in both the thinner and thicker versions. Then there is the techo version, or the planner or notebook version, which is the famous 52 GSM version. And then finally there's something called N. N does not mean like new Tomoe river as in, post 2019, but it's just another type of Tomoe river with a different type of coating, I guess, which was also originally meant for printing, but they later developed a version of Tomoe river N for stationery. And this is only available in 68 GSM. And that is, when we talk about Tomoe river 68 GSM, we mean the N version. So they clarified that lineup, and they clarified that this N version existed prior to the switch over to the new machine. They also clarified that you can buy both 52 and 68 GSM today. The difference is that 68 or N is made to order, and I think that might be why you don't see as much of it, because I think that makes it out of reach for probably smaller notebook makers, because you probably need to commit to a fairly big min quantity to do that. But you can order it today from Tomoegawa, so they clarified that. And then of course I had to ask them the obvious question. I wasn't sure whether they would tell me anything, but I told them that I read your medium-term management update where you said that you're going to shut down the machine that makes Tomoe river during this financial year. So what's going to happen with Tomoe river? Are you going to move production somewhere else? And then they replied and said that you're right, that we are shutting down the machine. We are currently looking into contract manufacturing, or Seizo Itaku. They're currently looking into it, and once they have more detail finalized, they're gonna tell their distribution partners what's going on. So nothing is final yet. Obviously, otherwise we would have heard about that through other channels, but they are looking into it. So it's not all dark.
Yeah, I wonder though, because that implies that they're not going to actually be making the paper. So would it still be like Tomoe River? I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but it's hard to say, of course. I mean, I don't even understand why it changed when the same company at the very same site in Shizuoka, when it just moved from one machine to another, why it even changed. So I don't understand that much about paper production, but the very fact that they're willing to tell some random guy with a blog and a podcast that they're looking into this would suggest to me that they have some level of confidence in it, right?
Yeah, and this is just, as we said before, Tomoegawa is a massive company. And I suspect that they've been getting a lot of inquiries recently, and that's why they had such a readily prepared answer for you.
Yeah, but it wasn't really prepared, because I asked them 3 specific questions, and then they answered each of those questions, and then I replied and said thank you so much for these answers. Would you be okay if I post this on my blog and talk about it on a podcast? A few hours later, they replied, and not only did they say yes, but they did their own translation into English, which, by the way, wasn't a very good translation. But they said, you can post this as it is.
Yeah, and I think that's very much the definitive version, right? Like, we hear stuff like wood pulp. Clearly, that's not been true. We heard that Tomoe River had stopped production in December 2020, which is obviously, again, not true. We're hearing all sorts of different stuff, but I think your blog is really just the definitive version, straight from the horse's mouth, as they say.
But yeah, we will try to keep on top of the story, and if we heard something else, we will definitely talk about it.
Yeah, but also adjacent to that, we have since the beginning of this saga, we've we've started to experiment with a lot of different papers. What could be, in the case that Tomoe River does not continue, right? Because they said they're looking into outsourcing. For me, that is like a medium high. It's probably, I would put it at about maybe like 60 to 70%. But there's by no means any guarantee. So in the event that Tomoe River does go out of production, or if the new Tomoe River is not as good, what are our other options? So we've gathered here today to do a lot of paper tasting. And I have to say, Khuê, you are the one with the most comprehensive testing on the table. Jacob, you've done very comprehensive testing between like the different versions of Tomoe River as well. So maybe, Khuê, you can talk us through the different papers that you've brought here today and what your favorites are.
Yeah. So since like two or three episodes ago, when this Tomoe River hunting paper start, and I saw people panicking on Instagram and just like ordering kilos of Amazon Tomoe River, every stationery shop that they know they can hold some of their notepad or notebooks. And I was like, yeah, look at me. I just ordered just before you released the first episode on Tomoe River. I just ordered some stock, but I was like, in case the paper disappear, we have plenty of other options. And I wanted to I want to try to find my second favorite, because of course Tomoe River will stay my favorite paper for fountain pen. And I was quite surprised that on the market there is a lot, but really a lot of very, very good paper for fountain pen. They all react differently to the type of inks you would like to use. Like if you want your inks to show some shade or some sheen or shimmering inks or really pigmented ink or very wet inks, some paper won't react as well as Tomoe River, who is more universal, I would say, for any type of inks. But you can find a very big range of price, like really cheap Akane shop, like 100 yen shop papers, to very big production papers like Tsubame. In Japan, you can find Tsubame paper everywhere. Campus paper, you can find them everywhere. And Midori papers, like the one who is used in traveler notebooks. Midori has his own brand of notebooks, who is MD. This one you can find like in almost every stationery shop in Japan, and I know they are quite represented in US and Europe, even on Amazon US. And so I really start to collect, like first in my craft room, because I had a lot, like drawers filled with notebooks. So I take out all the notebooks I was keeping like for later. You buy notebooks because you see they are nice or something, and you keep it for later, but you never use them because you add more notebooks and more and more. So I was like, okay, this is the moment where they can all be on the stage. And I took out a lot of like Muji cotton papers, and I contact some of the notebooks producer in Japan, and some send me one or two notebooks to test and to review. So I want to thank, for example, Kunisawa paper, who are like kind of high-end, very elegant, beautiful ring notebooks, and they have a quite thick paper compared to Tomoe River 52 gram, so you don't see through, but it support all the ink I test. It support very well. There's no bleeding, no seeing through. And I talk with Kunisawa owner, and he or she, I'm not sure, said that they used to use fool's paper years ago, and they were quite surprised because in Japan usually people really enjoy them, but in outside Japan, in like other countries, they got very bad reviews. Like people test them and said that the batch was bad, the ink didn't react correctly, and stuff like that. So they really try to change, and they listen to their customer, the user, and they change. No, they are working with another small company. They didn't want to say the name out, but it's not a secret, they said, but they prefer to keep it in like professional only. And it's very, like, I was surprised. The paper is a very good quality, and the notebook itself, if you want to, you can. I will take some picture later, but if you want to have a look, it's really like chic, very elegant notebook. It's a ring one, but the ring is like bronze color, so it doesn't seem cheap. It's a really nice notebook, and they have a whole range, and I think you will be interested, Alesa, because they have a line with fabrics cover. The William and they make the William Morris, and it's a very nice. If you want to have a nice journal, fountain pen friendly, like check out their website, because the team is really, really adorable. They answer all my questions. We chat for I don't know how many hours, and I ask if they have other paper who are not fountain pen friendly. But they're really patient, and they listen to their user, because you can see a lot of review from like gourmet pens, from many people on Instagram have tested their paper, and it's like the new production is really, really good. Like I had no problem with the previous one, but this one was like no problem with any inks. And we were talking about airmail, onion skin paper, and you said, CY, that you had some like bleeding with some onion skin paper you bought on Amazon, right? Or online, I don't remember.
Yeah.
And we were like talking about there's different kind of onion skin paper or airmail paper. Like airmail paper usually is coat, so it will be really, really thin. You will see through, but the ink won't bleed, so you won't have any damage on the next page. Never buy the 365 fountain pen friendly papers. It's the worst. You just put like the nib just touch the paper, and you go through 3, 5, 6 page. I don't understand why. I don't understand why they call it fountain pen. We talk about it offline, but why? It's not a fountain pen friendly at all. I mean, it's only for pencil, I guess, or maybe like a ballpoint, but not for fountain pen. But the airmail, the onion skin paper from this American brand who made very nice notebook too. So the onion skin journal on Instagram. The same, they send me a journal to test, and it's a very, like, the noise is incredible, so I have to share it with our listener. This is real onion skin. The noise is incredible. So it's really translucent paper, and the same, you see through, but the ink won't get on the second page. Yeah. It's a beautiful notebooks with fabrics cover, hard cover, and they have this design with this
Ouroboros.
Ouroboros snake, infinity snake on the cover. They restock. They do small batch, and in the US, I guess in Florida, if I'm not wrong, and they restock quite often. They add new colors, and if you don't want to have like a notebook, like you are afraid, this kind of the blank notebook, you're always afraid to start a new notebook. Either you do as me, you just bring them all and just start to test all your inks, and then they all got like printed. Or they have this notepad. If you want to test this paper, but you don't want to have a full notebook, they have the notepad, so you can write letters and stuff like that.
The one that I got was Plover Vintage Onion Skin Paper. And my issue is that if I use a pen with a lot of ink flow, right? So if I'm using like a flex pen or like a parallel pen, there's where I get most of the problem with it kind of bleeding through. Is not like, it doesn't get into the next page, but I do see that the color changes is not exactly the same color, or on the reverse, it's kind of like it kind of has some kind of a bleed through, not as much as to the next page, but you can see definitely that there's it's not. Well, I guess it's normal, right? That it doesn't act like a standard paper. The second thing is that because it's textured, so a lot of times I can only use round nibs on onion skin paper. So if I'm using like flex, I find that it catches on the tines, or if I use like italic, it kind of catches. Yeah. So that's my main issue. And then the third thing is that when I write, I sweat when I write, right, especially in the summer. And so usually I do try to put something underneath my hand, but I do find that, from top to bottom, and this is why I don't use life paper actually, because life paper, the top is fine, it's beautiful, but when you get to the bottom, everything is like, spread and like oily, and it's just not, it's like it's not the same paper. And I find that with onion skin paper, particularly with some inks, you do see this kind of feathering going on, just because of the texture of the paper, because the paper itself is kind of feathery, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think the one that you brought is actually a really beautiful example of the paper. So yeah, maybe I should go back and try with my onion skin paper journal as well.
And I was quite surprised by the bank. We had this discussion with Jacob once, like the bank paper from Life react quite funny with one ink. The Maruzen Doukan, Nihonbashi Doukan, the bronze medal, where it react yellow instead of orange on every different papers. On the bank, the shade is yellow. We don't know what chemistry happening there,
But what's interesting to me about that is that the test I did was with this new Takasago premium bank paper, which is actually something, it feels quite different. Well, I think the life one is the, I don't know what you call it, like the traditional bank papers. I don't know what makes something bank paper. I don't know what it is, right? But clearly there seems to be a property that these two have in common that makes them more lighter, as you say. But also, I would really like to echo like Khuê's recommendations that there's cheap, really good paper in various places, right? And especially you mentioned Muji's the cotton paper. It doesn't show like shading quite as nice as Graphilo or Tomorrow, but it's really nice to write on, and you don't really have any bleed through, and that's dirt cheap. And also you talked about Kokyo Campus. When you buy Kokyo Campus refills, there are like two kinds. There's the more common Sarasara Kakeru refills, which aren't that good, I would say, and then there's a slightly less common Shikari Kakeru refills, and those are really good, have a nice texture, and they handle ink really well, and it's dirt cheap, absolutely dirt cheap. And you also mentioned like 100 yen shops like Daiso. You can find fantastic paper at Daiso. The only problem is you might never find that same notebook again, right?
Daiso has very small, they have very small batches. They sell once, and 1 year or one season later, they don't have exactly the same product anymore. So either you test and you really like it, you go and buy the whole stock, and then you are safe for a little while. And I just want to mention that MD Midori has this Midori normal like white or cream paper, and they have the second line with Midori cotton paper, who will be a little bit like, I think, the Muji one, like the touch, the aspect is a bit similar, not thicker, but more with more grain. I don't know. Texture, yeah.
So, Alesa, have you done much paper tasting of your own, or are you gonna just whatever Tomoe River comes out, you're gonna use that?
Well, now that I've found out that my new Tomoe River was a bad batch, I mean, it's similar enough, the one that I just tried here with Jacobs. So I'm happy with it. I mean, no one paper is going to be perfect for everything. So
yeah, and maybe we can spend a little bit of time on this bad batch, because I remember last year I was prowling around the Pen Addict Slack, and some customers had received from Musubi a book of Tomoe River that was basically, not performing as it should, bleeding, feathering, going all over. And so Down from Musubi actually did an investigation and found this bad batch. So, if you have a batch of Tomoe River that's not good, like, you're not crazy, right? Like, there was a batch of Tomoe River that was just not very good. I'm sure there's like more than one batch, but let's say, Alesa, in the imaginary world that Tomoe River does not outsource, right? So Tomoe River gone. It's like a rare Grail vintage paper now. What paper would you use?
Well, my answer is probably not a good one for people. Like, I would use Grafilo or Takasago premium bank paper, and those are kind of hard to get. But I would say, for just easily to obtain paper, it'd be Tsubame. They're foolscap. And I think you can get those like even on jet pens and stuff for like $5.
Yeah. Jacob, what would you use?
Well, I've never been using Tomoe River that much to begin with. I think my favorite like everyday paper might be Midori MD. It's just perfect in every possible way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Midori is a very good, not second choice because it's different, but it's a very good plan B. As it's really easy to find, at least in Japan, quite affordable, not the most expensive one, and it has a very good, like you see all the sheen, you see all the shading, and as a user of travel notebooks, I'm quite used of this paper, so it's not a surprise or something.
Actually, I want to revise my answer because I'm not going to use, I think that's sort of the point. I'm not going to use like just one kind of paper, just like I don't use just one pen or just stick to one ink. Like, this is fun. What we're doing here, testing paper, this is fun. I enjoy this just as much as I enjoy trying new pens and trying new inks. I'm going to use a new kind of paper every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good answer. Akane?
Help, I'm drowning in paper. The whole house is turning into a Tomoe River warehouse right now.
And cats.
And cats. I need to have the cats move the paper away.
Oh yeah, you can make
I can make a cat parade.
Cat parade and they hold like tons of Tomoe River on top.
I think I need to have a Tomoe River parade in the house.
Yeah, I've got about 10 years worth of Tomoe River for my personal use.
10 years, I think 100.
No, maybe 5 years. Maybe 5 years. I have 5 years. But if I have to share, that obviously means that it's split in half. But yeah, I think Grafilo for me is a close option. The texture is a bit different, but it works pretty well. I quite like the paper. The problem
of the ink you use on Grafilo.
Maybe, but
some never dry.
For me, I've never had that issue.
Okay, try Emerald or Shiva and you will see they never dry.
I have, and I haven't had that problem. Maybe you have a bad batch of Grafilo.
Or maybe because I use a flex nib, so it's like a pond of ink, and it's every time I touch my finger is green.
But I've dumped.
Yeah. The problem with Grafilo is obviously it's a bit expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive.
But yeah, I think that's it's pretty good paper for what it is. But Jacob, speaking of, you said you're never going to use one ink, one pen, one paper. We have somebody here who's just finished doing that for 30 days. Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yeah, I'll be putting out a video next week on that. But the main thing, in many ways, it was easier than I thought because once you get in the groove. But like today, trying all this different paper and ink, I missed it a lot.
Yeah, and you've managed to convince some other people to do this challenge with you as well. None of us here, because we're not crazy. But some other crazy people on Instagram have kind of accepted your challenge. And what's been the feedback on that?
Actually, it seems like for a lot of them, it was like discipline. It was like, I think it was difficult for them. I was constantly getting messages going, well, CY sent me a pen and I want to use it. Should I? Like I'm their mom? I'm like, well, if you want to. But I think for a lot of them, it was deprivation in probably I went in a little bit deeper, really limiting myself. I only used one paper, so I had to cut pieces of paper out of my journal to like take notes or send letters or whatever. So since I went so deep, it was probably a little bit easier for me.
But there's two rules to this, right? First of all, you can only use one pen and ink, right? But the second part is you couldn't buy anything new.
Correct.
Right? And I think that's what people have been complaining about.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the funny thing is, talking to my husband about it, he's a non-pen person. And he's like, they can't go a month without buying a pen? And he was just completely, I'm like, no, that's really hard. You don't understand. But yeah, that was the biggest complaint I got, were people talking about buying new paper, buying a new bottle of ink or a new pen or something. And yeah, I didn't look at a lot of social media.
I'm going to close out with this, right? Let's say it's year 2022, 1 year from now. Would you do it again?
Oh, yeah.
You do it again? So
I really felt like I really got a lot out of it.
All right. So next year, we're going to have round 2 of the 30 days challenge.
And we're going to do it too, right, Simon?
No, I'm not going to do it. No way.
But I've already done it, but involuntarily, because I broke my arm. I couldn't write for one month. So
it was a little bit easier that way, wasn't it? But did you buy stuff?
No, because I was kind of depressed about the whole thing. I didn't want to buy anything.
That's what I'm saying. You kind of get in that groove and you just kind of go with it. Yeah.
But Jacob, I would argue that yours is a bit different. You were like 0 pen, 0 inks. All right. So I think that wraps up the episode. Thanks everybody so much for listening. We've kind of blasted through a lot of topics today. I hope the editing goes well, because this is kind of like a new setup for us. But yeah, it's been lots of fun. So we really hope that you can make it your Instagram story, tell a friend about the podcast, help us spread the word, write a review on Apple Podcast. All of those things really, really help us. But most of all, keep listening, and thank you so much. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm a foodie fan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog that I finally updated.
And thank you for having me. My name is Khuê. I'm Mirai Cat on Instagram.
Thanks, guys. I'm Alesa, Inky Rocks on YouTube and IG.
And I'm Akane, just Akane. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.